Hi, everybody. This is Aaron Kazanich, your Baltimore Ravens beat reporter for PennLive.com and the Harrisburg Patriot News. Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about the possibility of the Ravens trading their first round draft pick, either to move up in the draft or back in the draft order, which is something that Eric DeCosta touched on. He talked about this possibility in an early morning conference call on Thursday. Now, the Ravens own the 28th overall pick, so there's only 32 teams. That 28 out of 32 in that first round. That means that if they want one of the very best players in the draft, they would probably have to trade a lot of their other picks to move up. The Ravens have ammo to do that because they have 2 second-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and 2 fourth-round picks. They've really stockpiled their draft picks through trades and by taking advantage of the compensatory draft pick formula, which is something that awards teams draft picks if they lose more free agents than they gain the previous year. So the Ravens have kind of gamed the system. They've made some trades. They have a good stockpile of draft picks later in the draft, but in that first round, well, they've got the 28th pick, and that's their prized possession. Your first round pick is the one where you're most likely to get a immediate contributor and a player who has the potential to develop into a star. Now, the problem with trading up, the Ravens could give up their 2 third-round picks and move up from 28 to 10, say, and then they'd get the 10th best player in the draft rather than the 28th. At least that's the way the logic would go. Eric DeCosta, the Ravens GM, said he does not typically like to do that. He's not typically in favor of giving up picks to move up in the draft order. His logic was that when you move up in the draft order, it's about 50-50 whether or not you really do get a player that's significantly better. And when you give up draft picks, especially draft picks in the middle or the early rounds, you're giving up chances at getting other good players. The idea is that the Ravens should be good at drafting, and the more chances, and there's some luck in drafting, and the more picks you have in that second, third, fourth round, the more likely it is that maybe you strike gold. So Eric DeCosta said he usually hesitates to move up in the draft, and honestly, the last couple of years have that belief has kind of come to fruition. The Ravens, each of the past 2 years, have traded back from their first round pick spot and ended up drafting later. And what they've done is they've accumulated more draft picks, and that's that they could use to move around later in the draft, or that they could just have more players, more picks. But in the past, when the Ravens have moved up, it's been for very important position groups, and it's been for players that turned out pretty well. The Ravens moved up in the first round back in 2008 when they got Joe Flacco. And a lot of fans will remember in 2018, they traded their second round pick that year and their second round pick the following year to go up to number 32 overall, where they drafted MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson. Those things have gone well. In the past, the Ravens moved up slightly to get left tackle Michael Orr. Those are premium positions, left tackle, 2 franchise quarterbacks who both, obviously made instant impacts. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson won an MVP. So the message here is that the Ravens will not make a trade up in the draft because they value their resources so much, unless they really think they can get a franchise-altering player by moving up. And the example that Eric DeCosta used, he said the Falcons moved up to get Julio Jones back in 2011, and they jumped way up the draft board. Julio Jones ended up being an all-decade wide receiver. That's the kind of player the Ravens would move up for. But unless you see, a superstar player move back at a position, a superstar player fall down the draft board at a position the Ravens need, at a premium position, then history suggests, and DeCosta's words suggest, that the Ravens will be very hesitant to give up draft resources to move up, at least early in the draft when it's more expensive to do that.